All right, here we are, about 2 weeks removed from our first trip to South America and the Patagonia region for Patagonman. You earned that shirt. You
Yep.
should be proud.
Right.
All right, so we thought we would do an interview. I would do an interview with Corel. I thought about just writing a race report, but I just feel like with these extreme tries, there's just so much that happens and goes into it in little details. It's a lot easier just to talk about it.
Yeah, I think I already forgot everything because it seems like it's been such a long time
I'll
ago.
remind you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start. Before we get into the race report, I just want to briefly talk about the 24, 48 hours before the race. We thought that your knees, because of your recent surgeries and the complications, we thought that your knees were going to be the biggest problem, but it actually turned out it was your back and a very unexpected severe issue with your leg,
Mm-hmm.
potentially relating to your disc issues and sciatica. And it's just something that has this bad has never happened before. So I just wanted to hear from you. How did you deal with this? Because what people may not know is it was hard for you to ride your bike on race week because your back was bothering you. You didn't want to run because your leg was hurting. You
Mm-hmm.
could barely put weight on it. So how did that affect your mindset going into the race?
Yeah, so it was really bizarre experience because, like you said, it never really happened to me before, like this to this extent, and you know, I still don't really know what and why, but probably the long flight, sitting for such a long time in the bucket seat on the plane, maybe irritated the nerve there, and I do have you know kind of messed up back with some bulging disc and stenosis. So all that put together, just woke up one night, about a week before the race, with extreme pain in my leg, and I could not put a weight on it. And at first we thought, like, is it a blood clot? Is it what it is, right?
Yeah.
Is it something? Because it was just really severe, like somebody stabbing the knife into my leg, and we didn't know what was going on. But then the next day, kind of with more movement, the pain was getting away. I went for a bike ride, and at first it was really difficult to pedal the bike, but then it just kind of got more manageable, and I was like, okay, I think I can, like, after some time of warming up, I should be okay. And then it was good for a day, and then it came back again and in completely different spot. Before I thought, like, oh, maybe it's a muscle strain, and it's like, no, my my bone is broken, right? And I could pinpoint exactly on the bone where it hurt, and it was just like so, like, convincing, like, oh, that's the bone, it's cracked, that's where I feel it is what it is. And so, yeah, I could not, like, and it happened when I tried to run again, that following night. So then I decided I'm not going to be running again. So the whole race week I just looked in the training view because, again, I couldn't remember. I ran once in Koike for 37 minutes, and then put a note there that the pain returned. So I decided I'm not going to run, not even the typical morning jog, to get the system going. Just didn't want to risk it. And yeah, like the biking, same thing. It was just kind of a little bit, kind of keep the body moving, but it wasn't my typical pre-race or the race week workouts that I'm used to do. So even the race morning, I could still feel a little bit of the pain, like, kind of, I could not fully, like, load the leg yet, but my mindset was just like, I'll just do the swim and then start a bike. I was kind of confident that I can manage the bike with this, and hopefully I will, you know, warm up throughout the bike ride, and then just see if I can run or not. But it was unknown, but didn't want to get to me too much, and I wasn't really stressing about it. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, you weren't. And I was amazed how your mindset was still very optimistic and positive, and you're just focusing on what you can do and just what's within your control. And you never really brought it up besides just communicating with me how you were feeling.
Mm.
So let's also talk about the night before the race. So I mean, it's typical you don't really sleep really well
Mhm.
the night before a race. You're kind of tossing and turning, but part of it, especially with these extreme tries and you're waking up so early. We had the alarm set for 2:15 because he needed to be in the transition area, out of the transition area by 3:55. He needed to be on the boat by 4:20, or the boat was leaving by 4:20. So we had to get up pretty early. We were staying just a few miles from the race start, so that was no issue. But you don't really sleep well, but our strategy is usually just get into bed really early. So we try to get into bed by 7 o'clock and just kind
Mhm.
of lay there, at least just be able to relax your mind and body and just try to get, a few hours of sleep on and off. But what ended up happening was our Airbnb. Um, there were dogs barking, there was roosters in the backyard, there were the family next door that was hosting us at the Airbnb. They decided because it was such a beautiful day that they were going to have a cookout and invite some of their family or friends over. And then they started singing and playing music. And this was all happening as we're trying to go to sleep at seven
Yeah.
o'clock. So that was very rough. And I don't think that you had any sleep that night.
Yeah, I think it was for the very first time that I actually didn't sleep at all. Yeah, nobody can really sleep that great before the race, but I usually don't have that much issues. And like, I know I can, going to bed earlier, I can just kind of zone out and I get some sleep. But this felt like I did not sleep at all because, when I was finally like trying to fall asleep a little bit, and the dogs start barking and more dogs start barking as they were communicating throughout the night. So I really felt like I didn't sleep at all. So I was like, well, I did have a good sleep the night before. Then I just look, it was like over 9 hours of sleeping. So
Mhm.
that was good. So I knew that like, hey, you get going, you start racing, and you forget it. There was a sleepless night.
Yeah. Um, I should also mention that with extreme tries, because they are extreme in nature, whether it's terrain or weather or cold water, there's always going to be uncertainties with art. Is the race going to have modifications? And we heard on Saturday for the pre-race meeting in Koike, that they told us that there was an accident, that one of the boats, because it's a port in Chacabuco, where the race starts. One of the boats flipped
Thank.
over, sank, and somebody passed away. And because of that, had an active search going on with the local police. And also, as a result of the boat sinking, there was an oil spill. So their first option was to move the swim to a different part of the water there. Also, the currents were high or fast, so they needed to move the location, but then they didn't know if the swim would actually happen. So there was the chance that it would actually be canceled. And so these are some of the things that with extreme tries, you really, I mean, we think about Ironman races. Oh, is the swim going to get canceled? And people kind of joke about it, but this is just part of the reality of extreme tries, that you really have to just be okay with anything. Of course, we wanted the full race to happen. It's very unfortunate what happened. But I think in every extreme try that we've done, there's been some type of either modification or last minute weather or something that's happened where you just have to kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to deal with. That was kind of on our mind. And then there was a WhatsApp group, and we finally heard on that morning that the swim was going to happen.
Yeah, they said a swim was going to happen in the full length, but it was the plan B. They said there was no plan A because of the accident with the boat and and the work they had to do there. So they moved us more into the bay, and we just kind of did like a half triangle shape swim. But there was a jump from the boat, and it was a full length. So at least that was kind of like good news in this sad news of the boat sinking.
Yep. So on race morning, we woke up at 2:15. We left our Airbnb at 3:10. We had two Airbnbs, so we only brought a few things to this Airbnb from our home base in Koike. So I had the car packed up the night before and just loaded those last few items. And then we left at 3:10. We arrived about 3:20. It was very easy to park. There was about 200 or so athletes participating in the race, but there was no issues with parking. These are very small towns, but there's a lot going on. And or a lot of space and not much going on at 3 in the morning. And then so Corral needed to be out of the transition at 3:55. We had plenty of time for that 30 or 40 minutes just because there was really nothing to do. There, a lot of people were setting up their transition area. But
Uh,
that was something that I
yeah.
was going to do once he boarded the boat. We didn't need to mess around with that early on. And then Corral boarded the boat about 4:10, and then it left a little after 4:20. So can you just kind of talk about the transition area, what you wore for the swim, and the air temperature and things like that?
Yeah, so air temperature was actually quite pleasant that morning, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't too cold. Like
maybe
they,
upper 40s,
uh,
low
not
50s.
not sure, but just kind of it wasn't freezing, like
Hmm.
they had it in the previous year. So it was good. And uh, kind of I was surprised when I saw the transition, how small and packed the transition was. And like knowing from the previous extreme tries, you really don't need to do anything in transition. You put your bike there, and then when you get out of the water, your support helps you with all the stuff, do the changing and stuff. But there were people like setting up transition like it was a local triathlon, and some people like decided, this is really good place for me to start putting all my gear on, all the cold water, swim gear, and changing right there by the bike and sitting on it. I was like, what are you guys doing here?
There was no space in the
Yeah,
transition area.
like, why would you even want to do that? So I just put my bike there and went away because there was really nothing for me else to do. And then start changing outside of the transition in the, more open space, which, made sense. But like I said, it was just kind of interesting. And I'm surprised that they didn't even like almost like force this rule, like enforce the rule like they did it in some of the other triathlons, that the extreme tries, that you only do it when you actually need to do it, which is when you finish the swim and the support gets in there with you, and you get to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
What
And
what did you wear for the swim?
so I have the gear that I practice with, which it actually almost ended up being like overkill for that day because the water wasn't as cold as expected.
It was like
And they
55,
Well, they
54.
said it was between 12 and 14 degrees Celsius, which 12 it's like 53.8 and 14 it's like 56 and change. So basically between those 54, 56. It's just
You
still
were
cold, but it was not as cold as
you were
expected.
prepared for 48 to
Yeah,
50.
yeah, yeah. So I had my, besides the regular wetsuit, I had a long sleeve neoprene base layer, really thin, wasn't restricted at all. And then I had a hoodie, a neoprene hoodie, which basically served as a, additional layer over the chest, and also like a neoprene cap that was not separated, so the neck was covered. And then I have a gloves and booties. So. And then I have as I was practicing the days before, I decided that the best thing for me, because I could still feel like the cold water getting into my ears. So, and I tried earplugs, just didn't like them. So I decided not to use the earplugs. So I just used, our Trimony silicone cap as like the first one. Then I put the goggles over, then I put a hoodie over, and then I put the Patagonman silicone cap over. So basically like three caps.
Yeah.
And like the only issue I had like days before, and I could still feel it when I jump in the water here, was the initial kind of like the cold water shock, like the brain freeze, especially around like the forehead, around the eyes. But I know that it just goes away after like some 2, 3 minutes. You just kind of you don't feel it anymore. And so that's why I decided to have these, basically additional layers with
Mhm.
the caps.
So, when you were on the boat, it was about an hour or so to get out to that point, and then you hung around for a while. During that time, I got your stuff out of the car. We had it all in a bag. With these extreme tries, you need to be very organized and also have to communicate with your partner, so you know what they need. So we have. Plan A, plan B. So, we just kind of went with what we assumed that, okay, he might be a little cold coming out of the water. the air, it's not super cold, but he's still going to be riding. He's going to do a full change after the swim. So I got everything ready and just kind of had plan B on the side and had plan A all laid out for him, as well as some nutrition. I had warm water in his sports nutrition bottle so that we practiced with this so that it would be warmer liquids that would help warm him up. Because again, we didn't know if the water's going to be super cold and he's going to be cold getting out of the water. So I did all that. So tell me about the experience on the boat for that hour. I know they spray you. Did you get in that water? What was the jump like? What was your mindset like? What was that experience?
So at first it was really exciting, and as the boat was leaving, just kind of like watch the shore. It was still very dark, and then just see the lights there, and then the boat was heading to the point where we'll eventually start. But then it just kind of felt like why the boat is going so long, so far away, and then like as I was kind of like peeking from the side, looking outside, and I see the other boat that there was like the sighting point, the first sighting point, and also the only turn on the course. And it's just kind of we were getting away, and then the boat just kind of start turning and start coming closer. I was like, "What are they doing?" And I just for some time, I was just kind of like, "I'm just gonna lay down." So I used we had a inflatable buoy, like the safety buoy. So I use it as a pillow and just kind of lay on the ground and try to just kind of rest. And I was surprised that nobody else was doing it. But then, after some time, I look around and I see more people like adopted this great idea. And some people were sitting, some people were just kind of like standing, walking around, chatting. So like everybody kind of dealt with their pre-race nerves maybe or routine, differently. And then when the boat finally stopped, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to start soon. And then they start getting those hoses out and start spraying us. So I actually went there to get the feel of the water. And I was really not cold, so the morning was again pretty pleasant, And I know from watching the videos of previous years or talking, like other athletes or hearing the other athlete stories from the previous year, it would say like it was always very cold and freezing. So we did not have that, so that was kind of good. But then it just kind of it got really long, and everybody were anxious to start the race. And also, what they did the day before the race, they said basically, as soon as the last person jump in the water, the race will start. But the start is not at the point where you jump. You have to swim like about 200 yards or so to the swim start. So it takes you a few minutes to get there swimming, right? You have to kind of like get used to the cooler water and then swim there. So nobody wanted to be that last person. So we were just like already bunched up there, ready to go and jump. And we were standing there for at least 30 minutes.
Mm.
And it was long, and then
Mhm.
they finally, opened the gate and lowered it down. And then like but even after that, we were still standing there for very long. And finally, it's
Mhm.
okay. Let's go and start jumping. So I went there. I was like really like anxious. I just wanted to get it going. So I jumped in, and yeah, I could feel the water is not as cold as expected, and but I could still feel that brain freeze. So it was good to kind of like a swim to the start, and I almost made it there, and then I hear the horn. So just kind of like put my hand up with the watch, turn the watch on so I can measure it or collect the data. And the race started. And I actually from the first stroke I just felt really, really comfortable. I feel like, you know, like I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting, some good catch and moving. And you can see like at first there's a bunch of people around, but then just kind of I was swimming pretty much on my own, and I could see that there was a line of like maybe 12 athletes on my left, but it felt like they are wrong and I'm right. Like I'm sighting on a boat and I see it, I'm swimming straight there. What are they doing over
You
there?
usually do a pretty good job
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah. So I just the
And there's
whole
no buoys, and that's
yeah.
pretty common in extreme
Yeah.
tries. You usually just get a turn buoy. That
Yeah.
there's might be a few kayakers out there, but there's not. It's not the spoiled atmosphere in an
No.
Ironman branded event where you get a buoy every 100
Yeah.
meters.
No buoys. It just was just that one boat with bunch of lights, so it was easy to sight off. But also at that point, like it was getting a little bit brighter. It wasn't that pitch black like when we get on the boat. And it was really cool in the backdrop. You can already start seeing those snow-capped mountains. So it was really, really nice picture.
Hmm.
It just kind of help you kind of stay calm, like, wow, I get to do this in this location.
Yeah.
So,
So I was waiting for you at the swim exit. Um, you had a very respectable swim time, and you were near the very front of the swim. So in the first, 20 people you came out. And then so I ran with you into the transition area, and then it was just the chaos because it was just so tight in there. And I found a spot a few bikes over from where your bike was, so that kind of threw you off a little bit because you're like, oh, am I going to my bike? And I was like, no, I have everything set up right here because there's a little bit more room. We had planned a changing towel for you to change in, but then we were like, nah, we'll just put a towel up. They allow nudity there, so
no.
we just held a towel up. So you dried off, and I kept asking you, are you cold? Are you cold? And you're like, no, I'm not. And so as I'm helping you change and get everything out, so you put your tri kit on, you put your socks on, you so you had that on, and then you said, I don't want the arm warmers and gloves that we planned on. I want the lighter ones. So that kind of threw me off. So I grabbed those from the bag and I put them on the ground and actually put the arm warmers over the railing in the transition area so I could just grab them as you were putting it on. So you put one arm warmer on and we forgot everything
And
else.
then you directed me to my bike, so I went there and I did not really feel anything, right?
Yeah.
And uh, then, I grabbed my bike
You're
and
also taking a bite of the bar. You're taking a
yeah.
few sips of the
Yeah, it was just
sports
kind of like
drink.
it was really chaotic. Like in the previous two extreme tries, everything seemed to be like really smooth and there's nobody there. But by the time other people were getting in there, and one guy was not happy that we were close to his bike, so
Yeah.
we have to move. And
And then I had your other stuff on your bike
yeah,
because I didn't want to forget
yeah.
that
So you have to
stuff.
have the reflective vest or like that X,
Yeah, I had
and
your phone in there, your
yeah.
helmet, we had
And they
your
actually checked it as I was like then grabbing the bike and start running out of the transition, before you even get on the bike, they check, do you have the light? Do you have the bib number? Do you have that vest, the reflective, is the
Mhm.
real light working? And then they do you have the numbers on, on the
Yeah.
helmet? And then they let you go as I start going. And immediately, like you said, you were asking me if I'm cold. I'm like, no, I'm not cold. Like I was not cold. But immediately as I start moving, and it's like something feels weird. Just kind of look down in my hands. I have one arm warmer
And no gloves.
and no gloves. It's
No.
like,
And then you just like put your arm
I
up
was like, what the hell?
and I'm like, well, why did you turn around? And you just kept going. But then I'm like, why is he so upset? We did everything right. I just don't understand. And so I go back and I'm looking at my phone because I took a video and I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then finally I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, well, I'll be able to see him in 10 miles. So I you weren't
Yeah.
able to assist your athlete for the first and last 10 miles, as well as between 80 and 100K. So I was like, okay, I'll just see him in 10 miles.
And
So I
then
felt a
actually,
little
yeah.
bad.
And after first few pedal strokes, as I hit like some really big bump, the front bottle launched, and we attached a elastic loop there for the bottles, but it was not attached there. So the
Because you
bottle.
did that last minute, like the day before, or a
Yeah,
few
but
days
you
before.
put the bottle in there, you didn't put the loop over, and
Right.
I didn't check it. So I just, the bottle launched, so then I have to get off the bike, go back, pick up the bottle, put it back
I'm
on.
like, oh my
Uh,
gosh, I already messed up. This is
no,
horrible. I'm
no,
such a bad
there's no
support.
messing up. It's just like it's part of the game. And but then I was going, and I was like, maybe in an hour it'll get warmer. I was kind of like, I could feel the cold, and then the fingers on my hands start kind of like a cramping, just in weird way as I'm holding the bar. So, then we stop at one point. I grab the other arm warmer, and so I was not setting that new trend of wearing just one, like people wear the one calf sleeve.
Yeah. So I had everything out. I had every glove he could want and arm warmers, and I'm like, take your pick, whatever you want.
So just get the other armor, get the gloves, and then I was fine and actually felt quite
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So tell me about from the Puerto Chacabuco to Coique. Tell me about what that terrain was like, what the conditions were like. It was a very pleasant day, so the cold wasn't a factor. So how was that part of the course?
Yeah, so one thing that that even after watching all these videos and hearing adult athletes talk about the course and everything, nobody ever mentioned that the roads are absolutely horrendous there. And we were just joking, like we finally found a road condition that it's worse in Greenville. And they like it was really little pavement, and what was like paved, it's not asphalt, it's like a concrete blocks almost. So that's their pavement. And it's in a rough condition, and constantly there's a whole bunch of like cracks on it and holes, and so it
Pavers.
yeah, some pavers, some like those cobblestones. So it was really really rough, and we actually even went over a few gravel segments, and so yeah, my bike setup, I had 60 psi in the tire, 28 mil tires with 60 psi, and it was that's felt fine, but like you have to constantly be on the lookout for a hole, spot hole, so you don't hit it with all the body. You need to unweight yourself so you don't risk a puncture, which everything worked well, it was fine. So yeah, the first part of the course, it was mostly it was tailwind, but it wasn't as strong as like the other days before. So I was just like, oh, bummer. It's not as strong, but it's still like, you could feel it was a tailwind and it's mostly flat. Now it's just kind of winding, through the fields, and it was still kind of reasonably packed that you still see athletes like you're catching up somebody, and you just see people. Later on it just kind of thins out, and you kind of you may see two three athletes that you kind of like tangle around, but that's about it.
Hmm.
And so yeah, the road to Koike, it's mostly flat right before Koike, then you hit the first big climb, and I was kind of looking forward to it because at that point, my hips were really tight and bothering me, and I told you when I was getting the arm warmer, like my hips really, really hurt, I can't really pedal. And then as I was going further, the hips kind of like settled. I was like, yay, but my back now hurts more. So I was like, what was better when the hips were hurting and back now? And so, but it's just I'm so used to it after you know, all the
Years.
years dealing with it. So it's just like it is what it is. But it's just I was just get I would catch myself thinking like how nice it must be when you just kind of like ride and your legs, the muscles hurts because of the effort, but it doesn't feel like somebody is sticking screwdriver into your spine. And but right before Koike, there was a climb, and
Beautiful climb
yeah,
filled with pavers,
but really pretty.
cobblestone
So
climb.
I was really looking forward to it, so I can change the positions and just kind of be more in the upright sitting position and climb. And I felt pretty strong on the climb. The only thing was that I haven't seen you for a while, and before that you would kind of leapfrog me and like yay and take a pictures, and then I saw you at one point, like I went by, you were in the car, you didn't really pay attention to me, and then I haven't seen you, and like it was like an hour later or so, and still no money. I was like, she's probably waiting so she can get behind me when I hit that first gravel segment. So to make sure that I don't get a flat tire, so she can assist me. So that's kind of that was my theory. But then I went through and descending, or no, it was like right before that, I see on my Garmin that you are calling. I was like, uh-oh, did something happened with the car? The car broke, and so I had my phone with me, so as I'm climbing, finishing that climb, I took the call, and you're like, where are you? Where are you? What mile? I was like, I'm just finishing the climb. I'm climbing right now.
And I'm like, okay, I'll be there in a minute. So here I am. I've lost Corel for over an hour. I
So first you
missed
give me
it.
one arm warmer and then you lose me.
I
Great.
was like, this is going
Great. No
horribly.
refund.
I am the worst at this. So uh I waited for Corel. He came by. I didn't see that he came by. So then I was like, okay, well, these people weren't with Corel before. So then I decided, okay, I'm gonna go ahead a little bit more and I'll wait for him. And I was like, maybe he had to stop to go to the bathroom, maybe he's stretching his back, maybe something happened. And I waited for him again, and then I looked at my from previous videos, okay, what are the numbers of the cars around me? And I was like, okay, I've seen this car. But then is this car ahead of their athlete? Is it behind their athlete? And then I got even more confused. I tried to call Corral, but there's no service where I was at. So I had to wait, and I kept driving, and I tried to call Corral again. There was no service. And then I got closer to Koike, and I was, and then I was like, I didn't want to freak him out and I want him to get upset. So I just said, where are you? And and then he told me and thankfully we had seen the climb. So I said, he said, I'm at the top of the climb. And I'm like, okay, I'm right behind you. I'll be there soon. And so finally I caught up and I'm like, I am not losing corral anymore today. So now let's talk about from Coyhaique to T2, because I think this is really to Villa Cerro Castillo. This was where the bike really happened.
Yeah, yeah. So after Koike, and you're still getting that half bit of wind, which was welcome. More tailwind, but it started getting to be more undulating and hillier. And then there was this like one significant turn on the course that we turned to the right, and the tailwind becomes crosswind, and that's where the biggest climbs were on the course. Also, if you guys want to go to Patagonman website and just kind of click on the profile of the bike course, when you see the profile, it seems like the whole race is uphill. It really just kind of goes up, 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 and then there is a descent down to transition. So that was just kind of like I'm looking at it, it's like, is it just me or is the whole course uphill? But it really didn't feel that bad, but it was good that I was familiar with the course. The first few days we actually stay at Airbnb by the T2, so I could ride the back part of the course. So I was very familiar with it. I was just kind of looking forward to it to get to the place that like, okay, I know it,
And the course actually gets prettier, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
yeah,
as it
yeah,
goes
yeah,
on.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you get, the views are better. You see the snow-capped mountains, and it was getting pretty. But also, I was getting more tired, and we did one like a major stop where I needed to go to bathroom and refuel, get some more nutrition. So I think that was like 3 minutes or something,
Yeah.
right?
Otherwise, I would
But
just hand you a
yeah,
bottle.
yeah. So that was the only like a bigger stop. I was riding at that point with some guy from Germany, some young guy, and he, a few times we would kind of like a trade who is in front, but I was doing most of the work. The reason was just kind of like I didn't like how he was riding, and I just wanted to, ride my own type of the effort. And then I was just also like, I don't even know what a draft rule heel is, like what the length is. And they said they will enforce the drafting, which was kind of funny because here we are like two people together, and then you don't see anybody else around. And so I'm sure there were other people like that do have somebody, but I just kind of said that the drafting will be enforced, and the penalty for drafting was like what, 30 minutes?
Yeah, 15 or 30
Yeah,
minutes.
something silly like that. So I just didn't want to even like risk to possibly get into some sort of draft zone. But I was always, if I was behind him, I was like way far back. But then I was just like, I don't even want to do that. So I did the majority work, but then I stopped with you and I lost him, and I basically didn't see him
No.
then.
And my mom and her partner Alan were tracking, and they would send me texts when I had service. And I wasn't sure how they knew what position Corel was in because there's really no timing mats along the course. And there's no GPS tracker that we've worn in other races. So I didn't know how they knew what position, but maybe somebody was recording and just checking off people as they came by. So they were telling me that Corel was between eighth and 10th place. And I was like, that's crazy. That's amazing. And
But I didn't like you told me that, and I was like, yeah, how would you know that? It's
they're
just kind
right.
of like you don't know that. Like,
Yeah.
and it turns out it was not really true. It was like I was like 12, because then what happened after that and in the run and where I ended up, but it was close enough.
Yeah.
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 And
Uh,
I was really looking forward to the last descent because it was so much fun. It was switchbacks, but again, it was that concrete road with lots of cracks. But I pre-rode it before, and I knew that it was going to be like long and fun and fast. So and there was another thing that I kind of convinced my mind that the the bike course it will end at that point, and then I will have like last 9 miles descending.
yeah.
So I was getting pretty tired, and in that last few climbs, I start feeling like the tension in the legs, like the pre-cramp like sensation. So I was just like, just don't get to that point, don't cramp up, just ride steady. And then I realized I can no longer stand up, and that's my style of climbing. I get out of the saddle a lot, right? And I could feel that, if I do that, and the chances that I can cramp are greater. So I just kept on sitting. I passed one more guy right before the descent, and then just enjoy that fast descent to T2.
Yeah. Um, and so as far as nutrition goes, we started off with 2 bottles of the apple cinnamon infinite. And we did that warm and we practiced with that.
Oh, it was cold.
But it was
It
warm.
was warm when it was prepared.
Yeah. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't
It
hot.
was no different than the other bottles.
So it was warm, and so that was refreshing.
Fake news. Yeah. No.
And then we moved to infinite fructose. We had the lemon lime and the grape, and I mixed up those because Corel
We
really
also had
likes.
the kinetic ketones in the bottles.
Yes, and then we use the kinetic ketones. They're concentrated shots. So we did about 5 grams of ketones in each bottle, everyone except for the last bottle. So Corel went through 5 of his almost 1 liter, 32-ounce bottles. And then he also had some gels, some Amex gels. You had some chew, the little bit of the chew. You had bar. You had one of your Czech candies, a sip of Coke. So in total, you went through about 26 ounce of fluid per hour. You had about 100 grams of carbs per hour. This was probably the best you've ever fueled on the bike. And you said that your energy was very
Yeah.
consistent. So besides your back, you felt really
Yeah.
good throughout.
Yeah. I felt like I could feel like the muscle soreness towards the end of the bike, but my mind was clear and like energy wise, I felt good. It's just the pain in my back, which was pretty excruciating at times, but like as far as the energy, I felt really good.
Yeah. And I never got bored throughout the day. I was just leapfrogging Corral, and when there was a pretty place or a hill, I would stop. And like Corral said, you're kind of around similar people all day. So it was nice to just kind of see those familiar faces, and I didn't lose him again after that place. So then there was one point on the bike where Corral said, "You go ahead and just go to the finish." And I didn't think that I needed to go that early, but actually it was really smart that I went because Corral was there
Because
maybe
I
20.
knew where I was because I
Yep.
pre-wrote it, twice,
Yep.
and I knew that like it's not gonna take that long
Yeah.
to get
And it
there.
was really good that we had our 3 Airbnbs because we knew every part of the bike course and we had driven every part of the bike course. So that helped a lot. And there aren't really any major turns on the bike course. So it's very easy to navigate, even if you're not familiar with it. And the community support and the police were really great in pointing and directing people where they needed to go. So even if you had just arrived the day before, you still wouldn't have any issues getting around there. And the way that people drive there, you're just passing people anyways. And so it was no issue for this race, just passing cars, passing people. So I got to T2 and I set up your transition area. I first set it up on the ground, but then I was like, oh, there's a bench over there. You're going to want to sit down. I know you. And so I moved everything over to the bench. I had a cardboard box, and I had lots of nutrition in there to keep things organized. Because in these extreme tries, I like to just kind of lay it out so you can see, and if there's anything that you want. We weren't sure which shoes you were going to
Mm.
wear. It was going to be kind of a last minute decision. You were hoping to test out your shoes a few more times
If
between
I
trail
couldn't, yeah.
shoes and road, but you couldn't do that. So I had both of those options out. You can't have hiking poles for this race, so we didn't have to have those. And I had your flask ready with your nutrition, and then also you chose to wear a hydration vest, but not have any fluids in it, just to have to carry and then carry your nutrition. And then you had your hydration belt, which you had a bottle in there. There was aid stations at 10K or 6 miles. And
Which
then
ended up being 4.8.
yeah, and then another one at
But then you run like 12 kilometers without
yeah,
anything. And
another
then
at 12 miles and then at 18 miles. And that's where I would see you. And I also brought some extra nutrition for you. So I had everything prepared. We went over it. We had extra stuff in there if you needed anything for like cramps or pain or ketones, things like that. So I had everything laid out. You ended up, our plan was for you to consume around 30 to 40 grams of carbs through a drink. every hour and then have at least a gel per hour of the Amex gels. And you end up doing a really good job with that. So tell me about first of all, how did you feel getting off the bike and what were your thoughts before the run?
Yeah, so yeah, getting off the bike, of course, you feel a little stiff, but I was glad to be off the bike and stand up. And the transition wasn't like extremely fast, and you don't like try to rush it. You just want to do everything that you need to do. And so, I had to wear the belt with a number, like a race belt on the bike, and then you have to put it and use it for the run. But since I had that compressed sport belt for my bottle, also the attachments for the number, and when I like put everything on, and like I don't want to have another belt over and then have difficulty to reaching and getting the bottle. So I asked you to just take the number off and put it on the belt while I was
Mhm.
doing whatever else. I decided to use my road shoes that I actually used in my previous two extreme tries, and because I'm used to those, and I know that I can run off road with those shoes as well. The other option was the trail shoes, but I just didn't run enough in those trail shoes, and wasn't sure how. Like they felt a little bit firmer, and I wasn't sure how it will feel later on. And also, while I was able to do some run training before the race, it was really limited to basically mostly indoor on the lever, so not even doing the full impact on the knees. It was just because of the knees that I was not able to do more than that. And if I was running outside, it was purely just a flat road. So I didn't do any kind of climbing running wise, just because I could not or didn't want to take the risk to load the knees going downhill, and experience any kind of setback. So it was what I could do before the race, and it was the decision like this is the way how I can kind of keep on doing some run training. But I knew that I was not prepared for the demands of this race, and I was okay with it. So yeah, I put the road shoes on, and then all the gear and start running. Actually, the first mile was on the road on the pave before you hit the trail section, and then eventually gravel. So only the first and last mile was paved. Everything else was off-road.
27-mile run.
Yeah, the run was 27 miles. And you know, as I was running out of the transition, I noticed there's another guy ahead of me, just maybe 20 seconds. And then so I'm just kind of like running behind him on that road. And I see he went to the side of the road to take a natural break. So I just kind of sneaked around like he didn't even notice I was there. I was like, yeah, I just passed somebody. And usually in the previous triathlons that I have done, like if I pass somebody, it's a done deal. You just check it off the list and you never see this person again. But unfortunately, at the end of the race, this person caught me and passed me, and I could do nothing about it at that point. But yeah, the first part of the run was probably the most demanding physically and technically because it was a single track, a lot of steep uphills, but gosh, it was so beautiful. Like the run was just the most beautiful part of the whole race. And you are there in the nature. There are wild horses and there are all kinds of animals and all kinds of views and just so pretty. There was a creek that we were crossing and yeah, temperature wise, it was actually quite warm.
It got
So
warm. It
like
got into the 50s.
the whole day was really nice because we have a sun the whole day, so we could really enjoy the views. It was not any kind of bad weather, so it was sunny. And so as I was crossing the creek, I actually kind of like stopped and just kind of like splashed the cold water on me. It felt so good, put my hands there. I actually ended up not taking off my cycling gloves. I kept them on. I was like, oh, okay, I have gloves. Oh, okay, that is what it is. Like, it's good. So if I trip on the trail, I can brace myself. But also, like as I put the hands in the water, just kind of kept the gloves wet and cool for a little bit longer. So that was nice. But I started noticing pretty early on that those uphills, I tried to run them and that my quads are getting really tired and really tight. And it's just kind of like, of course they are, because I have not done any kind of training for hills on the run. I did very minimum run training, and like I said, it was unloaded with a lever or on a perfectly flat surface. So that was one thing that I started noticing, and then it was getting worse and worse, especially in the downhills, because like you can kind of manage the uphills, but then going downhills, and it was like really slippery, and even on those gravel roads, it was just the quads start getting tighter and tighter, and by the time where I finally met you, I felt like I'm running with two wooden sticks that I could not even bend the knees. And you can even see it from some of the videos that you took that like I'm barely moving in this kind of like this weird way. Like I have wooden sticks instead of legs. There was one point at right at that second aid station, around the 12 miles where I came up to two guys as they were leaving. I was getting there and they were kind of surprised to see me. And like I could see them before, like in some of the hills, like they were walking. I was like, "Huh, I'm running. I'm gonna get you." And like I was getting tired, but I still felt pretty good at that point. But when they saw me, I talked to them afterwards, and then they picked it up, and they were constantly looking, but like, is he coming? Is he coming? But I was just getting slower and slower because the legs were getting tighter and tighter, and then I was just like barely moving. Like when I right before I met you, there was a long descent, switchback descent, and that basically did it. That did the job. My leg completely shot. So when I saw you, I actually decided way earlier because we were not sure if you will be running with me or
Yeah,
not.
maybe I should
Yeah.
say. So they were very strict in the rules that once you see your athlete in T2, you have to get out of there. And this was a town that, if you think about a neighborhood, that's really what this was like four streets, and a little school park area in the middle. So there was very little parking there. So they wanted, once your athlete is in there and they leave, you have to get out of there or your athlete can get disqualified. So they were very strict about that. So once I got Corell's bike and packed up all his stuff and kind of organized the car, I then drove the 30 minutes, 35 minutes to Puerto Ibanez, which was an absolutely beautiful drive. It was the first place that we hadn't seen yet, so I was actually really looking forward to it. So I drove there to the town, and you just drive, and the town just kind of ends at the water there. And I parked, and at that time, there weren't very many people there, just because Corell was in the top 15. So I parked and I kind of did some math, kind of thought about, okay, mile 18, he's not going to be there before 3 hours. So I had plenty of time. So I ended up going for a jog because I'd been sitting in the car all day. And if I was going to run with him, I just wanted to make sure that I was ready to run and I didn't want to hold him up. So I went for a 2 mile run and I ran to where the road starts from the gravel and then to the finish, just so I kind of had an idea of what it would be like, so I could tell Corral and kind of, because a lot of people said the road just feels like it never ends and you can't see the finish line. So I wanted to be able to prepare Corral and tell him, like, okay, we're almost there. So I did the 2 miles. I got all my stuff together. It was actually very warm, and I'm glad I ran because in the headwind, it feels a lot cooler, but Corella actually ended up having tailwind for most of the run, and that's what we were going to have. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's really hot. So I just had my vest that I'm required to wear and my sports bra on. I didn't wear anything else under that, like a tank top. And I had my vest with my nutrition. I also brought some Coke and some extra nutrition for Corel, a bottle ready for Corel so that everything would be quick. I wasn't sure what would be at that aid station, so I wanted to be prepared. And then I went to the bus and they said they weren't leaving for another 30 minutes, even though they told us they would leave every 15 minutes. So I was getting a little worried, but it ended up being okay. So I had to sit on this bus for the 9 miles on the gravel road, which was actually really great because I could see what we were about to run. So I could kind of tell Corral because this was all very new. I had ran the first 8 miles of the run when we got there, just an out and back. And now I was going to be able to see the last 9 miles. So that was actually really good. I saw the waterfall that I was really wanting to see on the run course. And it was kind of like a win-win situation. I wasn't sure if Carell was going to want me to run with him. So I figured, okay, if he's feeling really good, I can't keep up with him with that pace. So that's a great thing. I would be bummed that I couldn't run with him, but that's great that he feels good. But if he wasn't feeling good, I would get to run with him. And it turns out I got to run with him.
And I actually made a decision like early on in the run, like no matter what, that we will run together since we are in it together and we will finish together. So that was my decision way earlier, and I was really looking forward to that point that when I can finally see you. And then when I finally saw you, it was just kind of nice, but we still had what like 12,
We had
14K to
we had
go.
9 miles to go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And there were still some hills, and then still some descents, and then there was this like a long flat gravel right before it would eventually turn into that pavement and the finish line, and it was really really long, and that's where I got passed by that guy who I thought that I would never see him again because he was gone. Like anytime I would
They
look
snuck
back,
up to
and you
us.
just don't see anybody
There
like
was
at all,
nobody. So then
and
for the next mile, I'm like turning
yeah,
around
I
and
was like,
girl's
come
like, is
here.
anybody there? I'm like, no, we're good. We're
Yeah.
good.
So like I was running at 10th place and I lost it and finish eventually 11th, but that didn't really make any difference and didn't really matter that much. But it was just kind of I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, I thought that he was gone, he was done, and obviously he executed it better than I did, but it was still very, very pretty. And then I just could not wait to finally see the finish and the bell, and then once I get to the bell, I rang it really, really hard,
Yeah.
and I was so glad that it was over.
Yeah, it's something special with this race. They actually put up a wooden gate, and so the overall male and female, they open the gate for them, and they just set it up just for this race. And then you get to ring a bell, and then everybody after that just gets to ring the bell. So that was a very special experience. The race director, he hugs and congratulates everybody. The whole, every town and every place we went to on the course, people were cheering. They were asking because this is like their biggest race, and it has survived for 6 times. And
There was a gap of 2 years that it didn't happen because of COVID,
yeah, and it keeps
but
growing.
yeah.
So to have a race of this magnitude succeed just speaks a lot about the community and what people want to get out of this extreme tri experience. So it was really special running together for those last 9 miles. I carried your bottle for a little bit. I just kind of told you what was coming. And I just kind of talked to you, and sometimes we didn't talk at all, but I think I just kind of know you well enough that what you needed to hear. So yeah, it was a really great and special experience to be able to finish that together. So now that you did the race, would you do it again?
I would, yeah. It was really nice, and like actually speaking from the extreme triathlon perspective, and I don't want it to sound weird, but it was like the easiest extreme try I have done in terms of how much time you need to complete it. So like the two other extreme tries, I needed like, one was like 15, 16 hours, and this one was 11 and a half. So that alone like shows that it's not as difficult as the others, and mainly because of like the others would ended up on some like a high mountain where you have to hike, but I told you that this was probably the hardest runnable run course because you can technically run it all, although most people ended up walking a few of the steeper hills, but technically you can run it all, and that's really really difficult. The other extreme tries, there's just no way of running. You hike, the last part for sure, and try to get up to the highest point. And even in terms of elevation on the bike, like it was difficult bike, but we have the tailwind, which kind of helps a little bit. And like compared to Icon, where there was like these alpine mountain passes, so the bike there was more difficult, but each extreme try have like the difficulty or the extremeness in like a different way. And it's hard to tell like one is harder than the other, but just from purely looking at the time needed to complete this race, it wasn't as extreme as the other ones, but it was very beautiful, and like those remote areas, just untouched nature. It was just absolutely stunning. And yeah, I would do it again.
No. And you did say after the race that you wished it would have been harder in terms
Hmm.
of wind, rain, cold
Yeah,
water. You wanted the true
yeah,
experience.
yeah. I really like. Like I was so afraid of that super cold water, and I was just mentally getting ready for it for months, and testing everything and swimming here in the cold lake, and just kind of like, and then did that practice swim, and it was like everything was leading to like I'm ready for it, and I want it to be colder. it will probably not be pleasant, but I just want it to be to experience it.
You're
So
special, girl.
maybe in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for following along. We appreciate it. And congrats again on your accomplishment, your third extreme triathlon.
And thank you for your support.
You're welcome.